Welcome to our YouTube channel, The Alien Tales, and please ensure that you have subscribed.
She can only love me when I'm unconscious. I've stopped trying to wake up. In dreams, she's perfect. In reality, she recoils from my touch. The medical pod keeps me sedated while she visits my sleeping mind. The neural interface helmet felt cold against my scalp as Dr. Penelope Hartwell adjusted the final calibrations. Her copper-red hair caught the sterile lighting of the research facility, and I couldn't help but notice how she instinctively stepped back whenever I shifted in the medical pod. "Finnegan, I need you to understand what we're attempting here," she said, her Irish accent thick with professional concern. "The Oniric Bridge Protocol has never been tested with subjects who have your particular neurological condition." I laughed bitterly. "You mean my ability to accidentally fry electronics just by thinking too hard?" "Yeah. I'm familiar with my particular condition. The electromagnetic pulse disorder had ruined my life systematically. Every relationship, every job, every chance at normalcy. Electronic devices died around me like flowers in winter. But somehow, Penelope's equipment seemed immune, her quantum-shielded technology humming peacefully despite my proximity. The sedation will keep your conscious mind suppressed while allowing your subconscious to interface with the dream-sharing network," she explained, avoiding my gaze. "During REM sleep, your EMP emissions naturally diminish to nearly undetectable levels. And you'll be there?" In the dream, for a moment, her clinical mask slipped, revealing something vulnerable underneath. "Yes, it's the only way we can interact without risk." The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman I'd fallen for could only bear to be near me when I was unconscious. As the sedative began to flow through the fore, I wondered if this was progress or the most elaborate form of self-torture ever devised. "Sweet dreams, Finn," she whispered, and everything faded to black. I opened my eyes to find myself standing in a meadow that definitely hadn't existed 5 minutes ago. The sky was the impossible purple of childhood crayon boxes, and the grass felt more real than reality, each blade perfectly defined, swaying in a breeze that smelled like vanilla and possibility. "Welcome to my unconscious mind," I announced to the empty field. "Population, me and my crippling social anxiety. Actually, population, too." I spun around to find Penelope emerging from behind a tree that was definitely a maple but was growing oranges. She looked different here, her lab coat replaced by a flowing sundress that matched her hair. Her usual tense posture relaxed into something approaching grace. "This is incredible," she breathed, reaching out to touch my arm without flinching. Her fingers made contact, and neither of us burst into flames or experienced catastrophic electromagnetic failure. "Your subconscious is remarkably creative. Thanks, I think, though I'm pretty sure DreamU is responsible for the fruit tree situation." I gestured at the impossibly orange maple. "Also, why can I smell colors here?" She laughed. Actually laughed. A sound I'd never heard in the waking world. "Synesthesia is common in shared dream states. Your mind is compensating for the lack of physical sensory input by cross-wiring everything else. So this is what normal feels like," I mused, taking her hand. "No sparks, no fried circuits. No watching you jump away like I'm radioactive." Her smile faltered slightly. "Finn, we need to talk about the parameters of..." But her words were cut off as the meadow suddenly tilted sideways, reality folding like origami, and we tumbled together into something that looked suspiciously like my childhood bedroom, complete with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. "Well, this is embarrassing," I muttered, staring at the Star Wars posters and pile of comic books that had materialized around us. My subconscious apparently has the interior design sense of a 12-year-old. Penelope sat up from where we'd landed on my old beanbag chair, which was somehow big enough for 2 adults now. "Actually, this is fascinating. The dream environment is responding to your emotional associations with safety and comfort. Tell me, what did this room represent to you?" "Escape, I guess." I picked up a comic book, watching as the pages flipped themselves, characters moving like tiny animations. "When I was a kid, before the EMP thing got really bad, this was where I'd hide from my parents fighting about my condition. They thought I was broken." "You're not broken," she said softly, then caught herself. "I mean, from a scientific standpoint, Your neural pathways are simply operating on a different electromagnetic frequency than Pen. I interrupted. It's okay to be human for 5 minutes. We're literally inside my brain right now. I think we can skip the clinical terminology. She blushed, which was adorable and also impossible since we were sharing a digital dream state. Right? Sorry. Professional habit. The room suddenly shuddered. Comic book panels bleeding into reality as superheroes walked off pages and began rearranging furniture. A miniature Superman was arguing with Batman about optimal bookshelf organization. Is it normal for dreams to have their own interior decorators? I asked. Nothing about this is normal, Penelope admitted. But Finn, there's something I need to tell you about why I really volunteered for this experiment. Before she could continue, the room exploded into kaleidoscope fragments, and we were falling through a tunnel of memories. My memories. Playing like a broken film reel around us. We landed in what appeared to be the research facility's break room, except all the vending machines were dispensing emotions instead of snacks. I watched a diet anxiety tumble into the dispenser slot while Penelope brushed dream dust from her hair. Okay, that was either the most elaborate segue in dream history, or my subconscious really doesn't want to hear what you're about to tell me, I said, settling into one of the plastic chairs that was now made of what looked like crystallized starlight. Finn, I need you to know that volunteering for this project wasn't entirely professional. She fidgeted with her hands, a nervous habit I'd noticed in the real world. I've been interested in you since you started coming to the clinic. I blinked. Interested? Like scientifically? Because my brain short-circuits toasters. Romantically interested, you impossible man. She threw a handful of dream dust at me. Do you have any idea how frustrating it is to be attracted to someone whose mere presence could potentially stop your pacemaker? You don't have a pacemaker, I pointed out. It's a metaphor, Finn. Also, you've never given any indication that you... I stopped. Wait, is that why you always wear the electromagnetic shielding vest around me? I thought it was just standard protocol. Standard protocol my arse, she said, her accent thickening with embarrassment. I've been trying to figure out how to ask you for coffee for 6 months, but every time I get within 3 feet of you, something electronic explodes. The vending machine suddenly dispensed a can labeled awkward romantic tension that rolled across the floor and began playing a tiny orchestra of emotions. So you invented an entire experimental procedure just to spend time with me? I asked, grinning despite myself. I prefer to think of it as very dedicated flirting. The break room began to pixelate around the edges, reality stuttering like a corrupted video file. Penelope's hand suddenly felt less solid in mine, her image flickering between her dream self and something more clinical. Pen? Should you be turning transparent right now? She looked down at her semi-corporeal hands with scientific fascination and personal alarm. The neural link must be destabilizing. Your electromagnetic field is probably strengthening as you approach REM sleep stage 4. Can you translate that into regular person having a very weird day language? Your brain is waking up, which means your EMP field is powering up, which means... She flickered again, more severely this time. Our dream connection is about to get very interesting or very catastrophic. The facility around us began cycling through different versions of itself. Sometimes the current sleek research lab, sometimes what looked like a Victorian-era medical facility complete with questionable surgical implements, sometimes something that resembled a spaceship designed by someone who'd never seen actual space technology. Is that last one your subconscious or mine? I asked, pointing at what appeared to be a control panel made entirely of buttons labeled, "Don't push this, definitely yours. I have much better design sense." She grabbed my hand as another reality flicker threatened to separate us. Finn, listen to me. If the connection breaks while we're this deep in the shared dream state, there could be psychological feedback. We might not be able to separate our consciousness from the Victorian medical facility solidified around us, complete with a stern-looking doctor who was definitely not either of us but seemed to have opinions about our situation. "Ah, young lovers," the dream doctor announced in a voice like rustling parchment, playing with forces beyond their comprehension. How delightfully predictable. "Excuse me," I said to the Victorian dream doctor who had apparently invited himself to our neural party. "But who exactly are you? And why are you in my head uninvited? The figure adjusted wire-rimmed spectacles and consulted a pocket watch that was ticking backwards. Dr. Mortimer Blackthorne at your service. I'm what you might call a psychological artifact. A fragment of medical authority, figures your subconscious has encountered, given autonomous form by the dream-sharing protocol. Fantastic, Penelope muttered. We're experiencing spontaneous dream character generation. This is either groundbreaking or terrifying. Why not both? Dr. Blackthorne suggested cheerfully. Now then, Miss Hartwell, perhaps you'd like to explain to young Finnegan here why the Oniric Bridge Protocol was really developed? I felt Penelope's hand tighten in mine. Finn, I can explain. Oh, this should be good, I said, settling into a Victorian chair that had materialized beneath me. Please, don't let me interrupt what I'm sure is a perfectly reasonable explanation for experimental dream surgery. Dr. Blackthorne produced a clipboard from thin air. The original purpose was to study electromagnetic sensitive individuals and their potential applications in military consciousness warfare. Miss Hartwell, however, redirected the research toward therapeutic applications after developing what clinical terminology would classify as romantic attachment to the subject. Military consciousness warfare? I repeated slowly. It's not what it sounds like, Penelope said quickly. Really? Because it sounds like you were supposed to figure out how to weaponize my brain, but instead decided to use experimental technology to go on dream dates with me. The Victorian medical facility began to shake ominously, books falling from shelves that kept rearranging themselves into increasingly accusatory configurations. The dream environment was having what could only be described as a nervous breakdown. The Victorian facility kept morphing into different settings. A courtroom where furniture testified against us, a carnival where all the rides were powered by awkward feelings, and briefly, a restaurant where the menu consisted entirely of regrets. Finn, your emotional state is destabilizing the entire construct, Penelope said, trying to maintain her footing as the ground tilted like a funhouse floor. We need to find a way to calm your subconscious before what? Before you admit that this whole thing was some kind of elaborate military experiment that you hijacked for dating purposes. I could feel electricity building in the dream air around us, my real-world EMP field bleeding through despite the sedation. How is that supposed to make me calm? Dr. Blackthorne had produced an umbrella and was watching our argument with academic interest. Fascinating. The subject's emotional distress is creating recursive feedback loops between his conscious distrust and subconscious attraction. Miss Hartwell, you appear to be experiencing what I believe the modern terminology would call being in deep shite. That's not helpful, Penelope snapped at him, then turned back to me. Finn, yes, the original project had military applications, but I changed it because I believe in what we're doing here. Because I believe in you. You believe in my potential as a weapon? I believe in your potential as a person. She stepped closer, ignoring the static electricity that was now visible as blue sparks around us. Do you think I would risk my career, my research, my entire professional reputation just to study your electromagnetic field? The dream environment paused its reality tantrum, waiting for my response. I don't know, I admitted. I don't know what to think anymore. That's when everything exploded into pure, chaotic energy, and we found ourselves falling through digital space toward something that looked remarkably like a computer's recycle bin. We crashed into what appeared to be the emergency backup version of my consciousness. A stark white room with nothing but 2 chairs and a sign reading "Dream Malfunction. Please hold." Well, this is sufficiently ominous, I observed, settling into one of the chairs. Should I be concerned that my subconscious has error protocols? Penelope materialized more solidly now, though she looked exhausted in that specific way that people look when they've been explaining themselves for too long. Finn, the sedation is wearing off. We probably have maybe 10 minutes before you wake up naturally. And then what? We go back to the real world where you can't touch me without risking electrocution. And I go back to knowing that the only woman I've ever really connected with was originally assigned to study me like a lab rat. It wasn't like that, wasn't it? I stood up, pacing in the small white room. Be honest, Pen. If I didn't have this weird brain thing, would you have ever noticed me? She was quiet for a long moment. No, she finally said. But not for the reasons you think. Enlighten me. I wouldn't have noticed you because I wouldn't have had any reason to spend time around you. I'm not good with people, Finn. I'm good with research and data and problems that can be solved with the right equipment. She looked at her hands. But being around you, having to find ways to connect despite the electromagnetic interference, it made me realize that I actually wanted to connect. Not just professionally. Personally, the white room began to flicker, showing glimpses of the real medical facility beyond. The project started as research, she continued, but somewhere along the way it became about us. About finding a way to be together despite the obstacles. So you built me a dream world where we could be normal? I built us a dream world where we could be ourselves. The white room was dissolving around us, reality bleeding through like watercolors in rain. I could feel myself beginning to wake up, that strange pull of consciousness returning to a physical body. But more than that, I could feel Penelope starting to fade, her presence in the dream becoming less substantial as our neural link weakened. Finn, she said urgently, I need you to know something before you wake up. The sedation protocol, it's not sustainable long-term. The more we use it, the more your brain adapts, the less effective it becomes. Meaning this might be one of the last times we can do this. Share dreams like this. I reached for her hand, surprised to find it still solid, still warm. Then we make it count. There's something else, she continued. I've been working on a different approach. A way to create localized electromagnetic dampening fields that might allow us to be together in the real world. But it's experimental, and there's a chance it could damage your neural pathways permanently. Or it could work. The dream environment was down to just us now, standing in a space that was neither the white room nor any recognizable location. Just existence, shared consciousness, the basic experience of being together. So what are you asking me? I'm asking if you want to try. If you want to risk everything for the possibility of a real relationship, not just a digital one. I could feel my physical body stirring, the medical pod's alarms beginning to chime softly in the distance of waking consciousness. Soon I'd be back in the world where touching her was impossible, where every interaction was filtered through electromagnetic shielding and clinical professionalism. Pen, can I tell you something crazy? We're having a romantic conversation inside a shared hallucination. I think crazy is relative at this point. I think I'm falling in love with you. Both versions of you, dream you and real you. She smiled, and even as she began to fade, it was the most real thing I'd ever seen. I opened my eyes to the familiar hum of medical equipment and the concerned face of Dr. Penelope Hartwell leaning over my pod. She was wearing her usual electromagnetic shielding vest, maintaining her professional distance, but something in her eyes was different, softer, more hopeful. How do you feel? She asked, checking the readouts on her tablet. Like I just had the most vivid dream of my life, I said, sitting up slowly. Also, remarkably well rested for someone who just experienced experimental brain surgery. It's not brain surgery, she corrected automatically, then caught herself smiling. Though I suppose from your perspective, the distinction is academic. I swung my legs over the side of the pod, testing my balance. So, Dr. Hartwell, about that experimental electromagnetic dampening field you mentioned. She froze. I'm sorry, what? The potentially dangerous procedure that might allow us to have a normal relationship? Ring any bells? Her tablet slipped from her hands, clattering to the floor. A normal reaction that had nothing to do with electromagnetic interference. You remember? The dream conversation. Every word. I stood up, taking a step closer. She didn't move away. The question is, are you brave enough to try it? For a moment, we stood there in the sterile medical facility, separated by 3 feet of charged air and professional protocols. Then Penelope Hartwell, brilliant researcher and apparently closet romantic, did something completely unprofessional. She stepped forward, pulled off her shielding vest, and kissed me. The lights flickered once, then steadied. The medical equipment hummed louder for a moment, then returned to normal. And for the first time in my adult life, I touched another person without causing an electromagnetic disaster. Well, I said when we broke apart. That's promising, very promising, she agreed. Though we should probably run some tests to make sure. Later, I interrupted. Right now. I just want to enjoy being awake with you. Outside the facility windows, the real world waited, full of challenges and complications and electromagnetic interference. But for now, we had this reality, consciousness, and the revolutionary discovery that sometimes the best dreams are the ones you don't have to sleep to experience. The end.